The Steam Autumn Sale just big time rocked my big boy socks right off my calloused and bone-dry ground stompers. Or, in layman's terms, the prices got little and I got big. Wait, that's not right. Once more, Steam hosted a sale where publishers discounted their games for ridiculously low prices, and I purchased some of those games. There we go, that about sums it up perfectly. To be real with you, I don't need the biggest, newest hotness the day it drops, because I will always have 2 copies of Star Fox Adventures in my precious games box, and I'll always have access to Solitaire on my phone. I have no issues partaking in patient gamer parlays and holding steady in my halcyon days. But for you, today, I will splurge the big bucks on some weird hotness game action. Instead of focusing on some pejorative ice-cold past hotness, I'ma take a ride on the wilder side. I don't need to tell you about Red Dead Redemption or Cyberpunk or anything involving the Star Wars franchise. You should already be well versed in these things because, good God, oh Lord, you can't avoid them, now can you? Instead, today, I've assembled a pack of 10-ish weird little games. I'm not saying that these are superior underground gems or anything like that. In fact, there's a real chance you may have heard of some, if not all of these games, but if you haven't, well, won't this be fun? My criteria for a game to be considered for this list was as such. Number 1, be super cheap, like only a few bucks cheap, nothing more than $10. And number 2, have a playtime under 5-ish hours. Makes sense? I hope so, because it's time we get going. Don't Google Cloaca unless you're a freak, and yes, that is the best intro I have for this one. Aviary Attorney is a visual novel detective mystery game with light puzzle-solving elements and seemingly branching dialogue options. Oh, also the main characters are both birds dressed like men of means from the mid-19th century. Aviary Attorney offers an atypical view into a specific place and time, that place being Paris, France, and that time being right before the 1848 French Revolution, a revolution which saw the abdication of King Philippe and the installation of a new French government. Did I know any of this prior to Aviary Attorney? Absolutely not. I only have the best education the United States could offer me. I thought I was getting myself into a tongue-in-cheek detective game with goofy characters, but found myself entrenched in a tongue-in-cheek detective game with goofy characters that also takes place during one of France's many revolutions. In broad strokes, Aviary Attorney is a riff on Capcom's popular Ace Attorney games. Both feature bombastic courtroom scenes where players are tasked with defending their clients with verbal parries and riposte. Players are also charged with interacting with a colorful cast of characters while piecing together the events of their wacky cases. Dialogue choices appear in groups of 3 and the players make their best educated guesses as to what exactly the game is seeking from them. While the gameplay is simple, the main draws of these style of games is their respective narrative arcs. In Aviary Attorney, the player controls J.J. Falcon, a lawyer who by all accounts isn't renowned for his abilities. In fact, it seems like most of his clientele are attracted to the law firm because they appear first in the 1840s equivalent of a phone book. J.J. and his assistant, Sparrowson, who should be noted was kicked out of law school, that fucking Sparrowson, I didn't mean to swear, tackle 4 unique acts full of courtroom drama and detective snooping antics. Each act introduces a new gaggle of lovingly detailed animal characters who present their own personalities and motives in relation to the cases being worked. The game doesn't hold your hand outside of the first act, so it is entirely possible to make irrevocable mistakes in your praxis. I definitely did not receive the best ending in Act 2 due to accidentally visiting the wrong location at a critical point in the investigation, resulting in a bittersweet ending for my client. The game offers you the ability to save and continue at the end of the case, or if you're unhappy with the way things turned out, you can always just try again. I appreciate a game that allows you to make narrative warping mistakes, but also allows players who suffer from Type A sickness to rewind the canon accurate clock and suss out any law flaws that invaded their initial attempts. Overall, I think Aviary Attorney is an interesting but simple visual novel courtroom game. The game is more than just a goofy spoof of Ace Attorney and offers an interesting lens into mid-19th century France, even if at points it feels a little bit irony-soaked. There are quirky and bittersweet twists laden throughout and a host of oddball characters and unique situations. If you're a fan of visual novels or Phoenix Wright, then maybe this game is worth some of your attention. Minit has been on my radar since its release back in 2018. At the time, I was barely floating through a hazy college life and definitely didn't want anything to do with high-concept indie gaming. Well, 7 years later, and I'm floating through the benefits-eligible employee haze, and I've opened my big grand mahogany doors to anything and everything indie gaming. Like I said, Minit is a high-concept indie game that takes major cues from the top-down Zelda games and other 2D puzzle indie games of the time. Minit's gameplay gimmick is found in the game's title. You, the player, have encountered a cursed sword which locks your character into a pseudo-time loop. You only have 1 minute from waking up in your house before you must restart. Major progress is saved and key items you have found on your journey such as the watering can, camera, gloves, and extra hearts remain on your character and are not lost at the end of the minute. Players can find new home bases scattered across the world to serve as spawn points for other 1-minute runs. Within your allotted minute, the player is tasked with exploration, combat, and most importantly, solving puzzles. Some of these puzzles maximize on the 1-minute limited concept beautifully. My favorite encapsulation of Minit's puzzle structure is this old lighthouse keeper who speaks so slow that you effectively must sacrifice a run just to listen to his spiel, and then execute on the information it gives you on a future run. In most cases, the puzzles boil down to something to this effect. Use your first run to gain information about the world, and then execute on the information on a future run once you have the required progression items. Unfortunately, not all puzzles are created equal, and as the game progresses, it feels as if the game has blown its intrigue load too soon while the player has to pick through the remnants of someone's game design wreckage. Ultimately, I think Minit is a fun little game with a quirky and unique concept. Sadly, by its short length, it still doesn't have enough puzzle firepower to push itself over the line. Minit retails for $10, which is absolutely criminal. I strongly suggest you wait for this game to go back on sale for $1 or $2 at the most. I don't know if I did that in a minute. I was trying to rush. It was going to be a bit. Okay, thank you. That was Minit. It's okay. I'm terrified of the ocean. I cannot swim. My mother enrolled me in swimming lessons when I was a small child. The swim coach, who was really just my mom's friend with a pool, placed an empty gallon of milk in each of my hands and preached about balance. My delicate frame faltered in the water, and despite my efforts, I couldn't keep the empty gallon jugs in my hands. At one point, Miss Swim Instructor placed me in a horizontal swim position on the surface of the water, and then she placed her supportive hands beneath me, and she told me to start kicking. With her support, I kicked through the water, but I knew without her hands, I would most certainly sink. It's a frustrating feeling to be so reliant on someone else in such a dangerous moment, I thought. I looked around, I saw my brother, I saw my mother there on the other side of the pool, and then strangely enough, I also saw that instructor whose hands I thought were beneath me. At some point, she removed her hands and let me swim all on my own. Upon this realization that I was alone in the water, I sank straight down to the bottom. Clearly, someone just rushed in and I was whisked out of the pool, and ultimately nothing major came from this incident. However, I still can't swim. Maybe this, among other reasons, is why I gravitate so much to games about water. I can't get out on the sea for fear of meeting makers far too soon. You see, I love Wind Waker. I absorbed absolutely every inch of Dredge, and was delighted when scrolling the Autumn Steam Sale page to see Wavetale. I didn't dig much deeper. If anything so successfully catches my attention, I make it my duty to know as little as possible about it. A blind experience is optimal. My impression was that Wavetale was an open water exploration game with puzzle platforming combat elements. I was somewhat close, but there are some core gameplay distinctions I want to make here. This game technically has some open water exploration, but this is mostly facade. When new areas are opened up, the traversal is more akin to navigating an ornate hallway than to taking in the breadth and excess of a full open world. However, the core gameplay that occurs minute to minute is so fun and fluid that maybe they're less of hallways and more akin to a roller coaster, where technically you are on rails, but there's a little edge and intrigue and sauce in the proceedings. These traversal segments are common and an instrumental portion of the gameplay loop, but the bulk of the game eschews open world exploration in favor of tightly designed 3D platformer stages that come in the form of islands and ancient structures. Navigating these spaces is a fast and aggressive and tightly paced ballet of precision inputs. Our character, Sigrid, has access to a double jump, ground dash, mid-air dash, glide, and grappling hook. This combination of platforming moves creates situations where the player can confidently dash from objective to objective by dash maxing and grappling to objectives, or the player can more meticulously and leisurely tackle challenges by carefully navigating platforms and exploring areas. The flexibility and control leads to flexibility and approach, which maximizes the game's appeal. I started off being more careful about my movements and poring over the different areas diligently, but as the game progressed and the control scheme and moveset started singing beautifully in my ears, so then I started speedrunner-like dashing and grappling without a care. Sigrid honestly controls like a 3D version of Madeline from Celeste, and Celeste is actually the best 2D platforming game of all time, so I'm heaping an enormous amount of praise directly into Wavetale's shoulders right now. These wonderful controls in the platform combat areas merge seamlessly into the open water controls. When Sigrid launches herself from a structure, she will glow pink to show the player that a dive is possible. Diving from platform areas into the open traversal segments maintains the player's speed and creates additional situations where the player can string together dives and grapples and jumps in the hallway/roller coaster traversal segments. These control-oriented execution test segments feel triumphant, and as the game progresses, and as the player puts these skills to a test, the player will only continue to improve on their control fundamentals. Between traversal and platforming areas, the game's story unfolds. I won't spend too much time going over particular plot elements because I think this game's story is best experienced for yourself, especially if the gameplay at this point sounds tailor-made for you. I will mention here that the voice acting is quite good, the pacing is breezy, and does not luxuriate too much on any one moment. The characters are fun, both in design and personality. There's a notebook mechanic as well, which allows players to find journals along their path and learn more about this world, both in its current state and about what's happened in the past. So, up to this point, I've only gushed about this game. What's the catch? There has to be a catch, right? Well, yeah, kind of. There are two huge negatives at play. First, the combat. Wavetale, for some ungodly, unknown, unwarranted reason, has implemented a simplistic, rudimentary combat system that lacks depth or intrigue. Weak attacks, strong attacks, jump attacks, dive attacks. Limited combo potential and simplistic enemies make combat feel like a chore. So much of a chore that at about the midway point in the game, I dedicated myself to platforming precision avoidance of all non-required combat segments. So the combat, which is mostly avoidable, isn't too much of a negative, but it isn't good when the player actively avoids one of your game's main gameplay flavors. Also, minor spoilers, this game ends with a boss fight that requires utilization of these reheated leftover half-baked combat controls. Really, I truly believe that if Wavetale fully committed itself to being a pseudo-open-world platformer and refocused development away from combat and into additional fast-paced platforming segments, this game would be immediately slotted in as a timeless indie darling. Number 2, the length. Wavetale is short, like really short. The game took me just about 4 hours to beat, and I vacillated between big-time exploration and rapid fast speedrunner-like platforming in the late game. The game usually retails for $30, which I think is a bit too steep of an asking price for what you receive. The game just does not have enough content to warrant such a hefty price. However, I purchased this game on sale for $1.49, that's US dollars FYI, which is 95% off. If you have the opportunity to purchase this game for $10 or less, it is absolutely worth it. And if you are a freaky geek who loves a good, unique platforming experience, or you're a generationally wealthy individual who has never known true struggle in their entire life, well then the standard $30 going rate is totally fair. For everybody else, please wait for a sale. That's probably in your best interest. Then, feel free to get wet and wild. Kabuto Park, or Kabuto Park, or who cares how it's said, I only have to say it a few times, is a cozy little game for a lovely little price. The game centers on your character who's visiting a cozy little place at the end of their summer vacation. While on this vacation, she's introduced to the weird world of competitive bug fighting. The kids in this town are downright obsessed with the sport. They've crafted an elaborate ranking system, a method for compensating their victors, and a metagame based off of innate bug physiology. They are psychotic and deliberate and knowledgeable. And it's your job as the player to raise the strongest team of bugs to reach the pinnacle of this adolescent bug fighting ring. That may sound like a taxing endeavor, but luckily the game's tone is a lot more relaxed in practice. To assemble a team of bugs, the player is tasked with entering into new areas and participating in timing-based minigames. These areas are nothing more than single images with clickable magnifying glass icons that demonstrate where bugs are found. Once a magnifying glass location is selected, one of 3 rarities of bugs will appear and the player is tasked with executing a timing-based minigame. The green zone is an immediate catch, the blue zone enters a second minigame where the zones are expanded and simplify the timing, and of course, the red zone. Well, that's a big ol' miss. The 3 rarities of bugs, common, uncommon, and rare, are associated with their catching difficulty, where common bugs are super easy to snag, and rare bugs are little nightmares that may require the use of catching aids like honey to slow down the timing bar's speed. Each of these bugs comes innately equipped with abilities that are used in the bug fighting combat encounters, as well as unique stats that dictate a bug's offense, defense, and energy generation. Bug fighting competition teams consist of 1, 2, 3 bugs whose stats are added together and whose unique skills are added to your deck. That's right, your deck. This is a card game, and then I wrote the word LMAO, or Lamau. Combat encounters are split into 2 unique phases, holding and pushing. During the hold phase, the enemy team pushes against your team, and during the push phase, well, obviously your team does the pushing. While the oscillating hold and push phases occur, your team ambiently generates energy which is used to play the cards that your unique group of bugs brings to the table. Some of these cards simply augment your team's pushing or holding ability, but other cards have more varied effects, like affecting your opponent's pushing and holding power, generating random cards, and knocking back your opponent. Team synergy and strategy is crucial to triumph over challenges. You can create a team of flying bugs or tiny bugs or giant beetles, all of which have their own unique combat benefits. As the game progresses, you earn candies, which you can use to level up your team of bugs, and a special currency that is used to purchase upgrades which enable you to enter new catching zones, improve your catching ability, and raise the odds of catching rare bugs. In these new zones, with improved catching ability, you can find more powerful bugs to synergize with your current roster, or new types which open up new team crafting possibilities. Overall, I think Kabuto Park is a fun and simple game. Like all these games, this one only took me a few hours to complete, with everything done, 2 hours roughly, all bugs caught. The team building is fun and requires a thoughtful approach, and the fights can be really fun, especially when they turn into multi-minute struggles, where you end up on the edge of the barrel, but slowly, it's not a barrel, it's like a tambourine, you end up on the edge of the tambourine, but slowly, the tables of fate turn, and you push your opponent out. I just knocked my microphone over. Unfortunately, the bug catching portion of the game is far too simplistic and feels more like a required chore than a complementary component of a pretty fun game. Oh, and you can organize a terrarium of your favorite bugs, which is very cute and worth a lot if you ask me. Tower Wizard is digital crack cocaine. One hit of the stuff and you'll want more. For hours after completing this game, I was thinking in terms of Academy Wizarding levels, totem turnover, and dragon skill upgrades. The number dungeon that lurks in each of our brains eats heartily at the scrumptious buffet of Tower Wizards' perfectly balanced mathematical diet. The progression curves are calculated and cynical evolutionary psychology mapped to maximize visceral fight-or-flight reactions to the simple Homo sapien specimen. Access to this digitally illicit substance may make you bad at responding to your girlfriend's text messages in a timely manner, or make you put off meals and bathing. The number must get big, and the ancient wizarding wall must fall. Tower Wizard is an incremental auto-clicker strategy game about a wildly expanding wizarding tower. As with all games of this ilk, things begin simply with a single managed resource. But little by little, the game incrementally introduces new mechanics and currencies that inevitably directly interlink with each other in unique ways. The primary currency is magic, which is used to purchase souls to work on the various aspects of your tower. Woodworkers in the forest generate wood for totems. Librarians in the library to generate knowledge. Alchemists in the lab to create wizarding rocks and doohickeys. Dragon tamers to care for your dragons, etc. You get the picture. With magic, you can buy guys to work areas to generate currencies to improve other areas. Everything's crucial in this dancing magic tapestry. Once your magic tower reaches high enough into the ethereal heavenly plane, a spirit appears to stop your ascent by fabricating a magic wall which must be destroyed. To do this, players will invest their magic into additional souls which can be used to summon combat units. This is officially the late game, where all of your resources get reallocated to focus down fire on the spirit wall which halts progress. And that's basically the whole kit and caboodle. Tower Wizard is a relatively straightforward game with a short runtime and addictive gameplay loop. I strongly recommend this one for anybody who likes incremental games with an addictive edge, and I strongly discourage this game from anybody who is actually addicted to anything else. Be strong, soldier. Not this one, and not now. I purchased a few additional games which I want to casually mention here, mostly just so my YouTube thumbnail can say 10-ish games, because I really only have 9 reviews here. I fucked up, and I'm sorry I swear, I keep swearing. Far, Loan Sales, This is a situation where not reviewing any footage or information prior to purchase is a giant misstep. My dedication to blind playthroughs and following the recommendations of others has failed me this time. If I knew this was a limbo/inside-like game, I never would have played it because I think these games suck. If you like Limbo or Inside, this one might be up your particular alley. Everspace. I would have played this game, but it was definitely at the end of my line and interest, and by the time I recorded all this footage, my arthritis was acting up. So this game's clearly a no-go. It's a little too intense for my arthritis hands. I'll play it in the future. I'm sure it's good. It's about space. I love space. I'm sure you do too. Dropsy. I've wanted to play this game for a while. In fact, when I first purchased this computer I'm making this video on, Dropsy was actually on sale. But I'm an idiot and I missed the deadline to purchase it when it was only $1. Well, luck would have it, it's $1 again, and it's mine. I will definitely play this game at some point, because I know I'm gonna love it. But to be frank with you, I already have a few Devolver Digital games on here, and I didn't want to make this video basically just be a I'm leaving that in. I didn't want this video to be a fuck me. A Devolver Digital rundown. I didn't want that, so we're not doing it. I'm sure you would love this game too. I know I'm gonna love it. I'm too close to the microphone. Portal 1 and Portal 2. Both these games are bundled for $3 and that's some crazy work. I own both of these games already but wanted Steam copies. I felt like both these games were a little too AAA for this list, but Portal 1 almost made the cut because it is, by definition, a weird little game. Portal 2, on the other hand, not so much. After all, it's much longer, and it's only one of the best games ever made, so what is there to say about it? The muck and mire mar my melancholy mind. The abyssal shriek of biped blue beauties and the hookah haze has-beens dot the saggy and polluted landscapes of Sludge Life, a grimy world where the title somehow doesn't do it enough justice. Sludge is seeping from every fickle orifice, but somehow the world on display feels sludgier and grosser and more fractured. These fractured world elements are as close to proper levels as Sludge Life can offer, but I would be more willing and apt to refer to each segment of this world as a vignette of a larger, sludgier life. To end my hook with a thesis, Sludge Life is a game about reveling in the sludge, whatever that means. Your Sludge Life opens unceremoniously. There's no big cutscene, no expository dialogue, and no major call to action. You're just there, being yourself. If any of us normal folk were to occupy a larger narrative, if we were Truman Showed or Breakfast of Champions to weigh into our own winding narrative, well, I don't think many of us would warrant a big bombastic intro either. We take control of an almost derelict graffiti artist named Ghost. Ghost lives in a shipping crate, possibly doesn't speak English, his main tongue is the mother sludge, and is considering graffitiing his way to the top of the tagger food chain, though ultimately the player will divine his fate for him. The player is responsible for determining Ghost's ultimate motive. Do you want to tag and tag and tag until you've reached the top? Do you want to find a way out of the bog hell polluted bay land of Siggy City? Or none of the above? Sludge Life's lack of hook and narratively defined direction offers players an enormous amount of freedom to explore the odd surroundings and vibe with the eccentric townspeople. Sludge Life is at its core a hangout game where the primary action is motivated in proportion to the player's willingness to accept the author's truth and mindlessly meander to the beat of their own heart's hangout drum. Man, these sentences are long, man. The denizens of the assumed Siggy City, much like you, beat to their own drums not out of desire but out of necessity. Ghost finds an eclectic mixture of the downtrodden, derelict, deceitful, felonious, goober-max, addicted, and every other color of the sludge rainbow. These characters occupy an absurd world in absurd ways, jokes and threats in equal measure. Sitcom-style goofs and gaffs litter the landscape. Behind every door, you have no clue what oddball harem of chicanery will welcome you. From psilocybin vomit-inducing trips to washing machine thievery and giant, disgusting babies in low-rise apartment complexes, all the way to Ocean's 11-style heists. These variable moments of wacko, loony, bonkers nonsense masterfully brushstroke of vulgar humor dripped insanity onto the otherwise bog-standard walking simulator flair. Collectibles, unlocks, and progression key items are strewn about the landscape, and through some pavement pounding and mild puzzle solving, they can become yours. But these items take on their own sludgy flair. Cigarettes and CD-ROMs are the main collectibles, with key items including a camera, a teleportation device, a glider, and the King's Eyes. The CD-ROMs the player collects throughout the journey will unlock desktop icons for the player to access in the game's diegetic pause screen. Here you'll find all the usual UI/UX hellscape menu options such as the, well, You know the options, but you will also find minigames, music, and a locust swarm of the oddest viral pop-ups. When exiting the menu, Ghost leans fully into the diegetic sludge swarm and tosses his laptop directly on the ground. A silly choice that on its face exists as another one of Sludge Life's goofy goober jokes, but can also be used as a solution to certain puzzles, so that's pretty neat. Sludge Life's diligent commitment to its own bit is absolutely its pinnacle-defining characteristic. This grime-inundated world where drugs, tomfoolery, and the menial crush of the world's expectations resounds as a bullet shot in a whisper-length proximity. Like a good work of art, Sludge Life's personality awakens memories from my own past, like the times where I lived with any sort of human soul that could pony up a reasonable portion of the rent. At one point in time, I lived with a sous chef. He worked for a local joint that wasn't top flight fancy, but definitely wasn't near the bottom of the barrel either. This mid-level sous chef always made rent, which is all I really needed. But every other dollar he made, and some other dollars most certainly fabricated in the credit card mine, went directly to the purchase of whatever Pokemon card set had the best going value on the open market. He would hoard boxes of product in his closet, awaiting some sacred moment to pop packs or move off his investments. One morning in the dead of our winter, his 1987 Chevy Silverado refused its call to action and went slowly into the motor night. My roommate chef friend faced an impasse. Rent must be paid, but the car must be repaired for fear of losing his ability to commute to the restaurant at which he worked. With no good options in sight, he turned to his closeted stash of colorful cardstock, boxes and boxes of unopened product. If he flipped the majority of his stock, he would cover repair costs but lose what he cherished most. However, another option floated maliciously through his cranial tomb. What if I opened these packs and sold the best cards amongst the brood? This was risky, of course. On one hand, he could safely cover repair costs by selling most of his stock. On the other hand, a gamble, because if there's nothing of value in the packs, then all of the stock would be lost, and the repairs still wouldn't be covered. But in the best case scenario, only a few boxes popped could generate enough revenue to leave more stock untouched while still covering repair costs. Safety is not a virtue. So caution met the wind, and his dexterous, industrious chef-like fingertips got to ripping at the packs. I learned that he chose chaos as his mistress and gambling as his god in the middle of the night at some point in the week. A hectic beating rattled at my always locked bedroom door. This was uncommon since we had a shared understanding that nobody in this house of 5 gross men wanted to be bothered at any point under any circumstance. Talking was only welcome in communal areas. However, due to the atypical nature of the knocking and the flagrant disregard for the established boundaries, I knew something must be up. I creaked open the door just enough to see blown pupils and a frazzled visage. I looked down. I saw shaking hands clasping a card. "It's the one," he said. "This is the one that's worth the most. It's the first box, and it's what I needed." In his hands was an Umbreon card. In the card, Umbreon is the size of a tower and wrapped around its spire. She paused at the distant shining moon. The background is calm and blue, and the city is asleep. I tell this story because sometimes gambling is good, kids, and other times gambling is really bad. Anyways, the chef was able to grade and sell that card and cover a large portion of his repair costs. What a lucky guy. To conclude on Sludge Life now. Sludge Life is a game about hanging out with greasy goobers who may or may not choose to gamble when their livelihood is on the line. If you like hanging out with weird folks and wading through grime, then Sludge Life is worth your time. That's a poem. And if you want to hear about that time I lived with an Indian millionaire or an actual, well, stay tuned and keep a lookout for my memoir titled The Grime Times: How One Man's Smell Transformed a Small Community. Dome Keeper is likely the most popular game on this list. After all, Northern Lion played it, and that's how you truly know that you've made it big inside of the incestuous gaming landscape. And I love Northern Lion, and that's not an insult, I swear. Dome Keeper is a roguelike strategy-based defense game. The gameplay loop consists of the player diving deep beneath the safety of their dome to extract resources from a foreign planet's innards. With these varying resources, players can upgrade their character's innate stats, such as their movement speed and drill strength. Players can also upgrade their dome's defensive capabilities, because with clockwork-like precision, ghouls and ghosties from the top land invade with the intention of shattering the player's dome and taking the player's beating heart hostage, Animal Carnage mastication style. It's up to the player to upgrade both themselves and the dome to maintain their safety long enough to reach the depths of the mine to retrieve an ancient relic that will enable the player to flee this hostile planet, with their beating heart still firmly attached to their own circulatory system. Alternatively, if the player wants, they can instead play a score attack mode, which goes on for way longer. This mode involves sending resources back to your native planet and being a paid big bucks capitalist. Between runs, the player unlocks different dome types, upgrades, gadgets, and even another character with a wildly different playstyle, which I hate. This roguelite flair makes playing through new runs an addictive and challenging endeavor where new toys are vaguely tossed in the player's direction and encourage repeat attempts, with both characters in both game modes. Players also have the freedom to select the size of the map they inhabit, from small to huge. And let me tell you, size does matter, because the huge map simply did not fit my playstyle. Domekeeper has a metric bus ton of content variables which will continue to entice and entrance players who find this type of repetitive and meticulous gameplay electric. Map size, difficulty level, character, dome type, and gadget are all knobs and levers the player can freely tinker with. And that doesn't even include the upgrades the player passively chooses when locating Sacred Berry terrestrial relics. I'll most certainly return to Domekeeper in the future when my strip mining obsessed left brain swollen scrupulous scruples manifest in the form of the dome sickness. In other words, this game's pretty good. The Assessor sucks, and the Sword Dome rules. I bought this game because it's called Nuts. I'm a simple man who goes hee hee and ha ha when I see the word nuts. I've only claimed sophistication when I was faced with the forever pit of malarkey. Luckily, the goober gods intervened and showed me that Destiny's truth is littered with poopy jokes and armpit farts and cackling maniac style, when a well-intentioned developer has the impudent audacity to slather toe-to-tip their artistic creation with the curt and abrasive euphemism, nuts. Nuts is an immersive walking simulator mystery game with a quirky puzzle gameplay loop. The player takes first-person control of a field researcher who is tasked to conduct an environmental research study prior to a mega-billionaire company arriving to build some corporate nonsense. While conducting your research, you'll regularly receive phone calls from a professor from the university, which is in charge of conducting this particular research study. This individual from the university will guide you on the particular steps required to progress your story. By and large, these steps remain consistent and decently paced. The game consists of 6 chapters which largely follow the same gameplay loop. Enter a new area of the forest in your generator-powered camper, which is equipped with multiple cameras, televisions, and the means to replay footage captured in the forest. The player will be tasked with monitoring the movements of squirrels over many nights. You do this by placing cameras in the paths of the squirrels, waiting for night to come, re-watching the tapes to see the path the squirrels take, and then waking up the next morning to readjust your cameras to accommodate any new information about the squirrels' pathing from the previous night's surveillance session. This camera shuffling gameplay starts strong as an interesting hook where the puzzle is to ascertain the forest layout and the squirrel's likely path, and then to place cameras in locations with appropriately large fields of vision to gain additional information and eventually track down the final location of the squirrel's nightly adventures. However, this quickly becomes a cumbersome task as after each night's tape review you must walk all the way to the forest to manually readjust the cameras. This is where the game really relies on its immersion factor. However, it just didn't click for me. I did not feel immersed in this world and felt that these to and fro quests to meticulously maneuver these cameras were busy work baked into the foundation of Nuts' gameplay loop. Clearly, by the footage you've been watching, the game does have a striking visual style and an overall swagger to its appearance. Also, the audio's excellent. The Foley work or the sound packs or whatever are expertly executed and do work wonders. So, with solid visual design and audio excellence, this game should be immersive. However, some games aren't for everybody. Nuts is not a bad game by any means, but it failed to properly immerse me in a Stockholm Syndrome's lock. I did not want to move these cameras around this luscious, acid-soaked forest any more than I had to. Nuts retails for $25 fucking dollars. I didn't mean to swear there. I got it on sale for like $3. I think the sale price is much closer to the gameplay's reality than the lofty $25 asking price. If you enjoy walking simulators, mild mysteries, and crufty, meticulous, repetitive puzzles, then this one might actually be for you, and clearly not me. God, I don't know where to start with this one. Let me just say, straight up, at the beginning, I like weird stuff. That's kind of the thesis statement for this whole video. I like when a person does something defining, when a person really makes something, not for somebody else or a nebulous audience, but genuinely makes something for themselves. Hylics feels like the developer went in with the intention of making their favorite game, and that shows itself in both the good and the bad. Hylics, like many weird little games, straddles the line between art and product, between interesting and trite, between abstract and straightforward, between honest and dishonest. These spiraling contradictions make for a captivating 4-hour ride through the crufty, clay-inspired landscapes and earth-boundified tone in combat. If what I just said or if the gameplay on screen has in any way stoked your interest flame, I'm going to plainly tell you to skip the rest of this segment, even if it hurts my overall analytics. Hylics is a game best experienced blind, or in this case, as blind as possible. The game is only $3 and is worth literally every penny. And if you're lucky like me, then you may catch it on sale for even less. Hylics aspires to be art or something in that vicinity. Please play it for yourself. If you're still here with me now, then maybe you've already played this game or it simply isn't your speed, but you still want to know a little bit more. Hylics is a role-playing game set in a claymation kingdom. Inhabitants of this world are odd mangles of cast-off kiln pieces and Homo sapien spines. They mostly speak in divine poetry and occasionally reads like a horoscope or addendum of a life lived. These wild words in a contextless void at points feel like a sacred screed, lovingly retched from the abyssal Old English divide, swaying into lyrical verse in opposition to meaning and an attraction to world building. These creatures, big and small, otherwise may as well speak an ancient tongue long lost and not English, as meaning is derived from shared experiences and not the wishes of a fortune teller's haze. The developer, I'm going to call him Mason, invoked these word sins with his computer processor through the use of auto-generated dialogue for many NPCs. A word bank of insidious and superfluous language gushes forth a seismic wave of nonsense gullies and more than the occasional chin scratcher. These characters say nothing in an attempt for the artist to say something. Still though, what written meaning exists is found and progress lurches through cumbersome gameplay trappings. The player takes control of Hylics' main character, a yellow moon-headed man with a cool jacket and a divine hate of a space king of sorts. He has the name that only someone like him could have. Wayne. A name no more hefty or light than any other. He could be Erdrick or Locke or Sora, just as easy a Hank or Tom or Tony. But Wayne he is. Throughout the runtime, Wayne encounters individuals of similar spiritual composition who join on his quest. Dedusmuin, Somsnosa, and Pongorma. A name like Wayne feels just about as intentional as anything when compared to the names of his peers who sound like long-dead scholars or demonic creatures or ancient words of witchcraft. With his eccentric cast of compatriots in tow, the towering, straightforward Wayne and gang tackle an absurd world in plenty of absurd ways. On the ground, through the sea, and by air, this desolate world contains architecturally striking structures which demand lavish attention. Nothing feels out of place in this world, but nothing fits in either. It's a startling contradiction for sure, but only one of many. In this world of backwards talking, indigenous, and physics impossible structures, the existence of office-style water coolers is intentionally dissonant. Hylics never wants you properly grounded, and if you ever feel like your feet are 10 toes down, then just maybe you're the one who's in just a little bit too deep. After all, this is a game, and a game needs gameplay, and for some reason, most with purchasing power don't consider articulate matters of mouth motoring sufficient. Combat clashes against everything. It's odd and non-dexterous and perfectly resonant in spite of itself. RPG-style combat encounters litter the overworld, and an enchanting force the oddities of the dystopian-inspired landscape, monsters and ghosts and gremlins and things that the mind isn't supposed to quite understand, are nothing more than meat for the meat machine. Enemies that are defeated by snapping in their general direction, spells that must be meticulously learned at disparate television sets, and odd items to be used to 6 feet tow your opposition. Battles are tests of flesh and will, both literally and figuratively. Chronology is a secret gift and awe-inspiring. When new party members join, you must revisit CRTs of past areas. After all, Somsnosa wasn't with you at the start of your adventure. They haven't seen the appropriate episodes to know what's going on yet. Combat encounters and overworld exploration are often challenging, forcing the player into trying new approaches and strategies. Defeat is just part of the game and something to be rallied from. Hylics has the slickest "you've died" screen of any game I've played, Wayne's ambivalent expression melting to reveal his lunar skull in detail. Upon death, Wayne and his gang will arrive in some form of Hylics' idea of the afterlife. Fish flop on the ziggurat, a bloody red sea crashes waves onto a sightly beach. Wayne builds his sand castles here. Upon Wayne's third death, he is awarded access to a VIP lounge which contains one of the rare water coolers. If you're a 100%er freak, then you must become a VIP. Here, from the start, players have a full view of the path ahead, 8 crystals which serve as links between the afterlife and the present life. A quick decisive tap and the warp is online, and your adventure can continue. All the while, Hylics' soundtrack clamors on incessant and captivating and distant and direct. It's perfectly matched to a vibe that's hard to pin down and evocative of a moment that someone somewhere experienced and is being sonically transferred into my meat vacuum. I know about Mason Lindroth more than yesterday, but I don't really know about him at all. And I know so little of Wayne other than his actions, but with each fluttery, indirect, hopefully hopeless song, I know a little bit more. Hylics has many moments of genuine shock and awe nestled away inside of its oblique narrative arc. The grotesque menagerie of future past-crusted denizens does not nullify their impact and moments of genuine humor. Old-school RPG gameplay with earthbound backgrounds and discordant tunes cover the gaps in the scenery and create an authentically unique experience. I believe Hylics' oddness has crested the peak of my brain mountain. I don't really know what Hylics is about, and I don't think I'm supposed to. I think sometimes you just have to accept things as they are. So you say Gibby's the evil king. Well, okay. So you say Wayne has many pets, but he doesn't have a bedroom? Sure, why not? Maybe accepting this one at face value is just as valuable as some deeper meaning. Maybe the deeper meaning is that sometimes things are silly, even when they make the attempt to have an appearance of depth. For some reason, I'm feeling spiritually compelled to rank these games in the order I'd recommend them. I can't fight this particular urge, so strap in while I rank these games from my least recommended game to my most recommended. Number 9. Nuts. This game just isn't for me. Again, like I said, that doesn't mean it's not worth playing, it's just not for me, and that's okay. I recommend this game if you enjoy walking simulators, games that attempt immersive, grounded stories, or if you like the sound of the unique puzzle-oriented gameplay loop. Number 8. Minit. Minit offers an excellent elevator pitch, but fails to deliver for the duration of its short run. There are some interesting ideas on display for sure, but too much of the game feels half-baked. I recommend this game for people who like Zelda-like action puzzle games, or just like the sound of this unique 1-minute system. Number 7. Aviary Attorney. Aviary Attorney was a pleasant surprise on all fronts. I expected a goofy tongue-in-cheek game that lacked depth, but found a game with a fair amount of thought, an interesting, flowing, decision-oriented narrative, and a bit of historic flash. I recommend this game for anybody who likes visual novels, Ace Attorney, or detective-style games. Number 6. Kabuto Park. Another pleasant surprise for sure. My only complaint with Kabuto Park is that there isn't more of it. I really enjoy the card battling and team building mechanics and wish that there was just more to it. More bugs, more cards, more battles, more synergies. The bug catching is underdeveloped and it feels more like a chore than it should. I think if the bug catching was more immersive or rewarding, then this game would be much higher on this list. I recommend this game for people who like team building games, simple card battlers, or just want a cozy sort of hangout time. Number 5. Dome Keeper. Dome Keeper is the game that I am most likely to return to from this batch, but that is only due to the amount of unlockable content. Dome Keeper is not nearly as short as the other games on this list, and its perceived runtime is a major boon. Gameplay is meticulous, strategy-filled, and occasionally hectic, in a good way. I recommend this game for people who enjoy roguelites, action strategy type games, or people who want a meditative game that occasionally rouses you to full action. Number 4. Sludge Life. Sludge Life is beautiful and gross and direct and insane. Sludge Life has an enormous amount of heart and humor spread over its slime-encrusted, nasty scenery. Multiple endings exist for the player to find, so there exists a fair amount of replayability, still all contained within a short but succinct and well-paced experience. I recommend this game to anybody who likes weird stuff, gross stuff, experimental stuff, walking simulators, or alternative art. Number 3. Tower Wizard. Tower Wizard is like drugs, the game. I fell head over heels for Tower Wizard's simple but addictive gameplay progressions. Everything here is tight and interwoven and diligently crafted. The only downside is an overlong final act, but otherwise the game is flawless in its proposed simplicity. I recommend this game for anybody who likes Cookie Clicker but is afraid to admit it, people who thought Balatro was video game crack, and anybody who has a few hours and a few bucks lying around. At this point I run into a problem. The top two could really go in any order, and I feel like the answer for which game I recommend more will change depending on my mood, and maybe even the weather. I'm gonna go with my gut for this video, but if you would like, you can treat this as a tie because both games are incredible in their own rights and very, very different. Number 2. Hylics. Hylics is a near-perfect distillation of artistic focus. Striking visuals, discordant yet beautiful music, and adequate gameplay anchor Hylics near the top of this list. If you have even the remotest of interest in role-playing games, Hylics is a must-play short RPG. Hylics revels in its weirdness to the maximum extent. I believe this game is equal measures genuine passion and disingenuous shitpost, and I struggle to identify exactly where I'm going to draw those lines. I recommend this game for basically anyone who likes weird little games. And that's everybody who's watching this video probably. And I did slam my Pepsi. If you like weird stuff, play Hylics. Which means, number 1, Wavetale. Probably a controversial choice, but Wavetale was my favorite game I purchased during the Steam Autumn Sale. I perused the Steam reviews and see that my opinion may be closer to the minority, but inside Wavetale is the DNA of a perfect 3D platformer, and this is not hyperbole. Wavetale handles 3D verticality in the platforming landscape better than almost any other 3D platformer I've played. The controls are tight and responsive, and casually urge players to maximize on the litany of gameplay tools offered. Wavetale also features a nice little well-paced story with great voice acting. The only downside Wavetale presents is its reheated combat system that lacks imagination and feels clumsily stapled onto a brilliant core. I recommend this game to anybody who likes platforming games or anybody who likes well-executed game narratives. And that wraps everything up. Steam sales are always a great time to find great little gems. I hope that one of these miniature reviews was a sufficient enough call to action to purchase or wishlist one of these odd little games for the next time they go on sale. I may do another one of these types of videos for the winter sale, so stay tuned if you're interested in that. Alrighty then, please enjoy this short afterword, and knowing myself, it will be somewhere between 2 and 20 minutes. I slammed my Pepsi again, because I ramble. Okie dokie, bye bye. Thank you for watching. It is an honor and a privilege to have the pleasure to make something that people want to watch. I'm only going to be here for a second. I know that I can rant and ramble more than I should. I'm going to tell you 2 things. The first of which is thank you, and we've already covered that. The second thing is I have some other videos that I think you might enjoy. My first video was on Star Fox Adventures, a game on the Nintendo GameCube. I spent an enormous amount of time on this video, and it goes into just an enormous amount of depth. If you want a long meal-like video, big scrumptious buffet of a video about something you may or may not care about, go ahead and give that a click. The other video is some high-concept nonsense that I came up with. It's called No Winning Allowed, Intentionally Losing at Racing Games. That video is me driving around tracks backwards, looking at little details, and crashing my car in hilarious ways. If you like high-concept tomfoolery, well, give that one a spin. Is that a pun? It might be a pun. I will see you next time with a video about something completely different, because I keep dipping my toes into these different pools. Feel free to stick around if you would like with those other videos. Otherwise, goodbye. Adios, okie dokie, yippee wahoo! See you next time, bye bye.